The word patient comes from the Latin patiens, to suffer, to endure, to wait. To be a patient is to wait. To wait for the diagnosis, to wait for the prescription, to wait for someone with sufficient external authority to tell you what you already know. Isn't that right, Gypsy? I spent nearly 3 decades inside a system that was built upon that waiting. And I need to tell you something that was very difficult for me to say while I was within that system. So, most of what people are waiting for, they already have within themselves. However, the system is not interested in them being able to figure that out for themselves. For example, the individual who sat across from me with those hollow eyes and immaculate test results knew exactly what was wrong with herself. And my first question in those consultations always was, well, what do you think is going on? Now, the ones who had genuinely been listening to themselves would answer quite clearly. And the answer that they gave was 100% of the time spot on. And didn't matter whether I'd taken a good history or not, they knew what was going on. But the ones who were still inside the outsourcing economy would say to me, "Oh, I'm not a doctor, but you are, so tell me, please." As if the authority to comprehend their own body required a credential. Hmm. Anyway, I'm former medical doctor Jen Draper, and this is episode 7 of series 2 of Patterns, Personality and Programming. The distinction that changed my entire practice, moving from outsourcing to insourcing, is going to be the topic that we will discuss during this episode. So, did you realize that there is an entire economy that is built and profits from your disconnection to yourself? Now, even though I mentioned the profit motive, it's not a malicious profiting in most cases, but it is indoctrinated into us and through the structure of our society and our culture. So, the longer that you actually remain a patient of your own patterns, waiting for that diagnosis, waiting for the programming to reveal itself, or for the person who will finally give you the answer, the more this system thrives because the more disconnected that you remain. Now, I'm referring here to the medical system, I'm referring to the self help industry, the wellness industry, the coaching industry, the veterinary industry, and including, and I want to be entirely honest about this, including my own coaching work. But that is only if you engage within it as another form of outsourcing. What I would prefer for you to take this on board is with curiosity and interest, and take what resonates with you and leave the rest behind. Because here's the critical distinction: outsourcing means handing your authority to an external source and waiting for that external source to fix something that you believe you cannot access yourself, whether or not it actually needs to be fixed. Insourcing is the process of returning authority to its rightful location, which is inside your own awareness, your own physiology, and trusting in your own capacity for honest self inquiry. Insourcing does not reject expertise. Instead, it repositions you as a collaborator in your own restoration, definitely not as a subordinate. So, I recall a patient who was a very accomplished nurse. She'd been 20 years in the profession, and she'd been to various different practitioners and conducted various programs for the better part of a decade. And she had really done very significant work on herself, real work. And she was still, her words, waiting to feel fixed. So I actually asked her, what do you believe needs to happen for you to feel fixed? Like, not what is the problem, but what do you need to happen for you so that you will feel fixed? A long pause. Then she answered, well, I think I'm waiting for someone to tell me that I'm done. That just stopped me in my tracks because what she was describing was not a deficit in her healing. It was an outsourcing of the assessment of her own healing. Blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. But not really surprised because she was part of the outsourcing system. She was a nurse who would give her authority to doctors in her profession. But when it came to her own health, she had done the work, but she was just waiting for that external permission to know that she had. So that's the outsourcing economy in its most subtle form, but also very sad because she couldn't even bring herself to trust her own inner authority. So insourcing begins the moment that you withdraw that authority from the external and return it to the internal, not with arrogance, but with precision and consciousness. So insourcing isn't complete self-sufficiency and it's not rejection of support, it's the reclamation of the primary authority, the recognition that no practitioner, no program, no diagnostic framework knows your nervous system better than your nervous system does know itself. So, insourcing begins with one fundamental act. And I've already hinted at it, and that is trusting what you already know. So, what do I mean by that? I mean trusting in your body's signals, not performing trust and not intellectualizing the trust, but physiologically acting from, and by acting, I don't mean performing, I mean taking action from the knowledge that is already present within your body, such as moving before fear gets to finish the sentence, making a decision before your monkeys construct another reason to gather more information. So, here is the most important sentence that I'm going to give to you in this episode. So, if you are taking notes, write this one down. You do not become ready and then begin. You begin and readiness follows that initiation of action. The nervous system does not recalibrate in theory. It recalibrates through motion. And that includes energy moving, which is emotion. And motion requires a decision to begin. So, an individual who has fully insourced their authority, who trusts their own physiological knowing, who makes decisions from a place of regulated clarity rather than survival urgency, is a genuinely poor consumer of the outsourcing economy because they don't go to the doctors, they don't wait for permission, and they may choose to go see alternative practitioners, but they are using that expertise as a resource rather than a replacement for their own knowing. And the wellness industry grows when people remain perpetually in need of that next opinion or that next intervention or the next latest treatment protocol or what the research shows. And waiting for that is outsourcing, whereas insourcing interrupts that cycle. It doesn't mean there's no demand for it, but the demand is with a curiosity. So, insourcing is the most radical thing that you can do in a culture that profits from your disconnection, which means reconnecting with yourself. So, in the next episode, we're going to speak about what, once you recognize that there might be a survival program running within you, what does it actually do to the people closest to you? Because these patterns in our relational lives are often the most visible evidence of the programming and also the most costly. But for now, you may well have been waiting for permission from a system that's actually not qualified to grant it. Because you were never a patient, you were always the answer. I'm Dr. Jen Draper, and this is Gypsy. She's gone to sleep on my hand, very comfortable. But episode 8 will continue this discussion. Will you join us then?